Sam, Corey, Eric, Philando, Ahmad, Steven, Kenneth, Amadou, Jonathan, Christian, Terrace, Sean. Killed him a day before his wedding. Jamal killed him while he was in handcuffs. Mike killed him while he had his hands up. Kamani, Ramali, Philip, Alton. About 3 Kevins, about 2 Jordans. John, Laquan, Bathon, Stephon, Tony, Tamir, Elijah, Antoine, Isel, Terrell, Dontre, Akai, George. For him, set the country on fire. Timothy, Patrick, Paul, Tyree, Quintonio, Darius, Jeremy, William, Anthony, Dante, Oscar, Kendrick, Keith, David, Walter, women like Sandra, Betty, Brianna, India, Michelle, Tatiana, Tanisha, Rika, Natasha, Pamela, Janet, Megan, baby Ayana. All that we lost, your name live on. Wasn't killed by a cop, but I can't forget Trayvon. Can't forget Emmett, and all of those we lost to the beast. No justice, no peace. No peace, no peace.
Hello and welcome back to the show. For the next couple of months, I will be using this platform to allow viewers to get to know and interact with our 2020 Democratic political candidate, as well as discuss current social issues. In order to make a change, we must be educated and politically active. Today is June 19th, or as known as Juneteenth. Juneteenth is the oldest nationally known celebration honoring the end of slavery in the United States, dating back to 1865. So later in the show, we will be talking about the importance of this day and remembering the victims of the Tulsa Race Massacre. But before that, we have with us Janet Diaz, the Democratic candidate for PA State Senate in the 13th District, and Rogette Harris, Chair of Democratic Party of Dauphin County, and our guest speaker, Vern Hyndman. Can you please introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about you? And we will start with you, Janet.
Janet, the candidate for Pennsylvania State Senate, and I'm currently running in Lancaster County District 13. I am also a Lancaster City Council member. Mm-hmm. I also hold a position at the executive party for Pennsylvania State Senate, Pennsylvania State Democratic Party. I'm the correspondence secretary. So my platform falls on, I can just talk about that real quickly, is healthcare. Healthcare, I've been in the industry over 18 years. Part of it has been as a medical analyst for stroke cases and cardiac cases. I worked in Health Guard as a Health Guard a patient representative. So I have a lot of knowledge in health insurance. And I also worked as a billing manager at a physician's office for a few years, which gave me the opportunity to know how they, the contractual fees and how they negotiate prices in reference to copays and out-of-pocket costs. From the healthcare industry, I feel that I have this strong passion to bring in different variety of ways and different tiers that we can make sure that our constituents all across Pennsylvania have healthcare. As I campaigned from last year till currently, I find that 50,000 Lancaster County people don't have healthcare. Let's not forget also the coronavirus that have let people off of work. They're either furloughed or they have lost their job permanently, which means they have lost their insurance. And COBRA is too sky high for them to afford. Along with that, I feel that with the corona issues that we're currently experiencing, many people have gone to become very depressed. They have fallen into the holes where they want to commit suicide, or they have gone into a cluster of either using drugs or some type of alcohol substance in order to escape from the agonizing pain of losing someone with the COVID-19 And that's one of the other part of healthcare that in my platform that I want to extend mental health treatment. I think it's very vital that we do that to make sure that we take care of all our residents. All our people are human beings and they deserve it. Along with that, I also part of the healthcare. We have very big issues with being able to afford medications. We have insulins that are just skyrocketing prices.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that, Eliquis or anything related to cardiac or strokes. These are, big brand names that people don't realize they just can't afford it. So that package alone is in fighting for healthcare is already started. I've already worked with Senator Hayward and said, look, these are the different ways we can tackle this. We want to make sure that I don't care what party you are, you're a human being, you deserve healthcare. And that is like the number one thing that's on my platform. Other than that, it's obvious that we need to have sustainable wages so we can afford to pay our mortgage, to pay our taxes, to be able to keep food on our table. And now more than ever, we're going to be hurting. We are in a recession, and we need to work on getting businesses to be able to, collaborate and help with those employees. It's not we're trying to get ahead without, saying that, yeah, this is what we deserve. No, it's the fact that we need to sustain ourselves or we're going to have more people homeless.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, I'm very passionate about supporting our farm. As you know, we're committed to the land industries. Our goals is to see our farmers preserve and supporting incentives and helping farmers battle continual climate change. There's, we need to be more committed as part for Lancaster County, the top spot in the state of the nation, as a county that we have the most acreage for farming. We have a lot of Amish, we have our grain and our corn that's produced here. So that's one of my passions, because I did live in a farm for 3 years in Puerto Rico. So I learned agriculture, what sugar cane is, how it's grown, what type of soil it needs to be, even though I was a youngster, but, having the opportunity to even raise a cow was very intriguing to me as a kid. And, I really want to go out there and meet some of these farmers out in Lancaster County and all across Pennsylvania. We need them as much as, they need us. So I will continue fighting, for, preserving our land and also incentives and, especially now that COVID has really hit us, farmers usually give, local produce to restaurants. And it's important. It's important to help our farmers. And also to sustain, the food that the food that we give to our, like the CHIP program, that is needed for our children to be able to eat. That is something that I'm more passionate for, because I was homeless at one time as a child, and I saw what it was to see my mom cry without being able to feed us. I was the oldest, and I always said, Mom, don't worry about it. We're going to get through this. Trying to be the stronger one to make sure she was not going to fall into that depression or, the anxiety. So we're going to get through this. One of the churches in Lancaster that has been around for many years opened the doors, and, we're able to give us some help to help us through the hard times and help us build what we have now. And this is what made me who I am currently. And so that's, those are the reasons I'm running. I need everyone to realize that when I ran for city council, I told them, once I give my oath is to help everyone. I don't care what background or what political arena you're in. I support everyone. That's where politicians have completely lost and the connection between our constituents. And that to me is important, knowing that they can rely on me is very important. I take it more personal than anything. I don't care. You meet me at 12 o'clock at night because there's some kind of catastrophe, give me a call. I'm here for you. That's the difference between me and some of these other politicians. They forget. Some don't even show up to some of their appointments. That's not me. So that's, that's Janet. Janet for Pennsylvania State Senate. That's kind of a small introduction of why I'm running. I need everyone's help, obviously. It's going to be a contentious race. By being a volunteer, you can come on and we'll be happy to take you as a volunteer to make sure that the word gets out. And also the fact that we need funding to buy, mailers to make sure that everyone in Lancaster County know who I am. Although surprisingly, when I won the primary, I completely got shocked at how many people from places that I did not knock on doors, which was very, very exciting to me. I can tell you that when I first started running, someone was saying, "Well, you're a woman of color. I don't know how that would fit in Lancaster County," and I found it kind of racist when she said that, even though it may not have been, but it proved a point that Lancaster County is open. I don't care what she said at that point. I just said, you know what, I'm going to do I'm going to view myself how people are going to open their doors for me. Mm-hmm. And Lancaster County is changed. They have changed. And even though I ran into more people, of white color, I cared about them just like I care about my own family. To me, you're my family. Lancaster County, you're here. I'm here. I was raised here. You welcome me in. The Amish letting me pet their cows, which is kind of hilarious, but I do like my cows. So, I can't take that negativity that woman told me, even though she was a Democrat, and it was kind of hurtful. But I proved her wrong. I proved her wrong that there are beautiful people out there in Lancaster County that have never been heard by a politician. And just the fact that I knocked on their door and listened to their story was enough for me to say, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for you. You don't have health care, you don't have insulin or some kind of medication. Your taxes are going up, and you want to make sure you stay there. You're not going to be thrown out and be in a homeless shelter. Those stories that I heard, Helen, Hannah, I'm sorry, it was Hannah. Hannah is a part-time employee at Decada, and then she's also at Rachel's restaurant. She's making minimum wage. She told me that she has no health care. She couldn't afford to go to school. And then, her boyfriend went to school and he owes $70,000 and he can't even find a job for what he studied. These are just some of the stories. The other one that really touched me was a family in Strasburg. This was just a whole situation that just left me dumbfounded. Yeah. She school educator. She had she had basically had to take her children off of her health insurance to put it on her husband's because of the cost. And this is our teachers, and then unfortunately her husband winded up disabled because he had an accident, a trucking accident. Well, he winded up with COBRA, so he had to take his kids out of, his insurance because he just couldn't afford it. Mm-hmm. Then her older son comes back from the war, PTSD, he's our veteran that's looking for a job. He can't find a job. This is just one family. So when you go to different doors and you listen to all those stories, it gives you that passion and that, that will to fight for them. And that's who I am. I'm going to fight for you, Just go out there and vote for me. You want to learn how to vote? Give me a call, My number's there, 717-292-8883. Give me a call. I'll help you.
And thank you very much. Actually, like I said to you earlier, this is a historic moment, and not just for you, but for all of us as women of color. And, you're the first Latino American to win in the area. And you, like you said, you defeated, yes. And you defeated all the odds. And you're going to hear some people tell you, you can't do it. And I think that's what is powerful about your story. You're giving women out there and young girls an inspiration and hope, just like what Obama did to all young Black American, or what Michelle did to all young female. you see someone that represents you. And I think that's part of the systemic racism that we will always discuss and talk about. You don't see someone look like you in the movies, in the government, in the police department, and the list goes on and on. But let's continue with the introduction, and then we will go back to you, Janet, and ask in details about everything you just mentioned fast. Rogette.
Before I introduce myself, just kind of what you just said about seeing people that look like you. And I'm going to be a little biased now, but we all know that if Donald Trump was a Barack Obama, he would not be there right now. And that goes also into the racism that we have in our country, where there's different standards depending on who you are. I just had to put that in there. But I'm Rogette, and I'm excited to be on the show tonight. I can't wait to begin the discussion. I am the Democratic Party chair in Dauphin County. I'm actually the first Black and youngest woman to ever be elected to this position in Dauphin County.
Again.
And sort of like with Janet, you know, since being chair, I try to reach out, because one thing that the parties don't do is we don't reach out to people of color, especially women of color, to run for offices and so support them. That's something that we definitely need to get better at, because I also was told that I can't win, and if I won, I wouldn't be able to raise money and blah, 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 blah. But as my mom says, success is the best revenge. So you just kind of go with that. But I'm also the only Black chair in the state of Pennsylvania, which, even though that's nice, it's very sad that out of 67 counties, there's only one. And that's something that we need to improve on, because it's not just about diversity, it's inclusion. We need those voices. Today means a lot to me, Juneteenth Day, because I feel as though we have obviously made progress, but there's still a lot to go. And when we see all the protests going on, I'm a former NAACP president. And we can't forget, though, that the march that means the most is the one to the ballot box, because we have to elect people who are going to represent the change that we want to see in our communities, in our societies. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be pushing tonight as we move forward in our discussion. I also represent the Democrat Party for Penn Live's podcast, Better Ground PA. And this is an issue that we've been talking about very briefly a lot. So I'll end my introduction there, because I'm excited to get into the discussion. But again, thank you for having me on tonight.
Thank you, and congratulations again. And I know you, and I know you've been through a lot, but you are, as Janice, like I said, two strong women who are out there putting hope and inspiration into young girls, and not just girls. I mean, anyone that is going through a hard time, or hope that they can do something. You have Rogette and Janet right there as your example. And now, Mr. Vern, you're up. You're the minority here. 3 women.
Yes. And how beautiful is that? I mean, you know, if we wanted to have an object lesson, this is it right here. You know, beautiful. It's as it should be.
Just like.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Amen. And I am honored to have you tonight.
Thank you. I'm a pastor, and I have a nonprofit called Heart Forge. And my primary gig is to help middle-aged men become romantics. And people always laugh when I say that. But one of the measures, you know, one of the measures of whether I'm successful is when a man is truly a romantic, the women in his life do much better. Mm-hmm. When we're best as men, we are fertile. We push the world back so that women can breathe, because given half a chance, women get crushed by motherhood, by the system, by everything. And when we're pushing back against those things, between God and a woman, they got it worked out. You know, we just make space in our fertile, things work usually. And so that's my main gig. My wife and I was born in the U.S. but I lived most of my life, the first half of my life in Canada and in Toronto area. So coming into the U.S. kind of in my late 20s, I moved to Dallas, Texas. So Juneteenth is very familiar to me because I was part of what we did. I did not really understand it. One of the things coming from Canada, one of the things that's profound is it looks so the same initially, but it is so different. The cultures are so different, and in really important ways. And so for me to start to grasp what Juneteenth is about, it took a decade or more, to understand. And we were very close to Tulsa, and so we learned about I learned because I'm interested. I'm a student. I hope to learn today. I'm with some brilliant people, and I hope to learn today. But I learned about the Tulsa Massacre early, and it's incomprehensible. It's just incomprehensible. And today, things are happening now that Colin Kaepernick got an apology from something's happening here. This is good. So this is good that he could be recognized for this positive thing that he's contributed. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited that there's listening happening, and I hope to do some listening today. And I hope that we learn to hear and we learn to love. Love is a verb. It's not this passive thing. It's not just an emotion. And I hope that we learn to love well. I hope that we learn to set each other up for success, to ask the question, what does your life need from mine that would help you be successful, and to be able to act on that, which I think I'm hearing from everybody here. We've got people just actively in politics, in every area of life, asking that same question: what does your life need, and how can we facilitate the success of your life?
You're absolutely right. And as I always, one of my idols is Nelson Mandela. And you said it perfect. No one was born hating another person for their color of their skin or their background. People must be taught to hate. And like you said, love comes natural to us as human, not like hate. And that's what's happening right now is we're trying to educate people about the systemic racism or any issue, social issue or injustice that is happening, and we all face differently. You don't have to actually face or be a victim of racism to relate. You just listen to your friends, listen to what they are telling you, and try to just be passionate and understanding. That's all we're asking from you. With that subject, Janet, what are some, and I'm going to ask you a question, and you guys feel free to ask her away and ask each other, but what are the main goals for your campaign?
You're sounding muffled. Can you?
Oh, I said you just talked to us briefly about your campaign before we.
My family? Did you say?
The campaign.
Campaign. Your campaign.
Yeah. Oh, my campaign.
Yes. You just talked briefly about that. Can you go in details about what issues that are important to you?
The issues about the platform or what? My campaign? Well, obviously my campaign is that we're in COVID-19. Even though we're moving to green in a couple of weeks, there's still going to be some preservation about going out and knocking on doors, which is the part that I enjoy. I really do enjoy talking to people. We need to raise money. So that's another, what they call a goal, in order to get the word out and make sure that other people know why I'm running. So like that, they can align with me. And if they have any questions or concerns, that I can answer them directly. That's very important. We need volunteers, those are challenges as well. And, we're just going to keep forging forward. You know, people ask me, how did I do it? And again, I say, I'm being myself. I'm being true, transparent. And I think that people see that I'm not, you know, a spoon-fed, privileged person, you know. I understand what they're going through.
Let me interrupt you right here. When we talk about privilege, you know, what does that mean and look like? A lot of people don't understand, and I think Vern is smiling because he knows where I'm leading this this discussion. We talk.
Well, if he wants to chime in, he's welcome to.
Yep, go for it.
I'm spending a significant amount of time talking to people about that because it produces in the white community, it produces a visceral pushback.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes from, I'm going to assume that it is just not knowing, that it is a misattribute. We see the world as we are, not as it is. Mm-hmm. And so often the white community sees, at least what I'm experiencing of that is the white community saying, I struggled, I have a rough time, nobody handed me anything. Mm-hmm. So could you just quit whining? You know, like, could you, you know, and what they don't understand. So the examples that I try to give, I at one point I was a wealthy dude and I built a McMansion in Texas. Mm-hmm. And one thing I learned is that for successful Black Americans, no matter how successful they got, no matter what house they built that they paid cash for, no matter what car they drove, in their own neighborhood, they would be pulled over for driving while Black. And that disconnects it from, oh, I'm struggling, you're struggling, why is your struggle different than mine? The difference in privilege is that no matter how successful you ever get, you still are going to deal with this thing. And whatever that thing is, that's called privilege. And so it's not, white people take it as, what did I do? What have I done to you? Mm-hmm. And because we're a highly individualistic society, we have a really hard time understanding how we can contribute to a system. Mm-hmm. And then, therefore, what should we do when we contribute to this system? Most Americans, when we talk about France, we're like, yeah, we helped you win World War II. I'm like, dude, you weren't alive then. You know, there's no we. You didn't do that. But we put ourselves in that and take part in the victory that we helped World War II with France. Mm-hmm. But we are very unwilling to put ourselves in as someone who is contributing to a systemic problem that's hurting someone else. And that's our challenge. And I think Colin Kaepernick he was saying it, and everybody was hearing a different truth, right? They were hearing a flag truth, they were hearing a military truth. They weren't hearing grief. They were not hearing, this is killing people. We need to stop. Could we rethink things? One of my favorite singers is from South Africa, and Vusi Malesa, and he sang a song a while back. It's called "Weeping," and it's about the struggle in South Africa during apartheid. There was a young man who was a white young man who was tasked with being a police officer and subjugating his Black fellow citizens, and he was unhappy when he wrote this song. And the point of this song is these people have this monster tied up in their backyard, and he goes, it's not roaring, it's weeping. You know, and when I see what's happening on the streets now, I see weeping. Mm-hmm. I don't see roaring so much. I see weeping. I see people saying, calling on his knees, saying, please reconsider.
Help us.
Can I chime in on the privilege question?
For it.
To me, privilege also means when you feel as though you deserve something. We also hear that, and coming from a party perspective, a lot of time Black candidates are told, oh, run for city council, run for school board first. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, I would argue actually that the lower the office, the more directly impacts one life. But we see white men all the time jump right to governor, jump right to president. jump right to higher offices, but they're not told to start at a lower level. When I went to University of Pittsburgh for undergrad, and I was running for president of the Democrat club there, and I was running against a white student. We were in the same grade, and his father was a former state representative. So he always felt as though, you know, it's just natural for him to follow his place. We have to also remember that in the United States, wealth is often handed down to generation to generation. We see that with Trump, when he said that the hardest thing in his life was taking $1 million from his father to start a company. What could we all do with $1 million? You know, that's hardship for him. But it was a close election. I won by four votes, but he was upset that he lost. So someone from the party came to me and asked me if I would share the role with him. Now, if that was reversed, would he have been asked to share the role with me? So to me, that's what privilege is. It's when you feel as though you deserve something, even when you really, you don't. And we see that a lot in today's society.
Beautiful.
Feeling
Beautiful.
entitlement.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. But like you all said, it's, you know, a perspective. A lot of people that dealt with the privilege or face someone, like you said, you have an example, and I have many. You know, I consider myself as a successful businesswoman before I do this as something it's close to my heart. I'm an activist and a lot among other things, but I bought my car, and I always share this story. You know, I was happy that I got a good pay, and I got my brand new car that back in 2003. That's not 1960. I was stopped and asked this car, not my insurance. They did not ask me if I have insurance registration or there is a reason I was driving 35 in a 35. Asked him, why did he stop me? He said, you look suspicious. Is this your car? I said, yes. He's like, this is a brand new car. I said, yes, it is. And it's my car. He said, you need to show me a proof. I said, why? You need my insurance? You can see the proof there. He said, no, I need to see documentation that you own this car. This was my, I mean, I always dealt with racism, but this was like a moment of, huh? Really? That's my first day. Took the car for a spin, and that's what happened. But you were saying something, Janet, about River.
Oh. Yeah, it kind of has the same scenario when she was talking about running. When I ran for city council, I was told, well, you should wait a couple years. I don't think you're educated enough. And when she said, you're not educated enough, that's when I said, okay, I'm not educated enough. We'll see. And that made me so angry, because that to me, and it's sad that it's the same party, you know, that's why it just even angered me more. I'm like, who are you to tell me whether I'm educated or not, to represent a community that is hurting just like what I have gone through in my whole entire life? You know, the fact that I basically would have to fight all the way to get a good position in a job. Or, you know, the fact that I have to stand up for people that they can't speak, or that need a stove because it's rusty, and I have to, you know, fight for that, you know, to make sure they get a stove where they can actually cook. I mean, it's just, the system is, to me, is completely broken. And I think people are opening their eyes now that even as an unendorsed candidate for city council, people voted for me. They came out, you know, they saw that I'm not the same as everybody else that makes these promises, and then they fall through. You know, some people said, you know, you have to tell me that you're not going to be a rubber stamper. And I'm like, no, because I will make sure that I will read the policy before I vote. And if there's something that I am not going to agree on, I'm going to vote no. I don't care whether they like it or not. And, you know, that's exactly what I told them I would do. And that's exactly what I would take to the state Senate. That if I see something, and I'm going to read policies. We have politicians that'll vote and they don't even read the policy. They'll look at it for the first page and then they toss it. No, that's not, this is what's changed. People are starting to notice We're voting for candidates that are endorsed, but then they don't even do what they say they're going to do. You know, that shows right there. But for me to feel like someone tells me that I'm not educated, that goes to show you about racism. That goes back to show you that, you know, that I'm not privileged because, you know, I'm not either part of the status quo or I don't have $1 million to run my campaign. You know, it's just broken.
Well,
it's always something.
Oh,
yeah, it's always. And you know, I wasn't the only one. There's another young lady, Selena. She's also Puerto Rican, Latina, and she didn't get endorsed either. And she won #1 just like I did. You know,
now
it's
taking in consideration, Janet. This is what you're going to do, and I know you said a lot of people don't have or lost trust in their candidates because you promised me something and it's not going to happen. And that's the difference, what differentiate you between, say, the Republican one running against you or someone else running against you. What the issue that are more, and I know you listed some of them, social, how are you planning to change this? Because I know we talked, I've been talking for maybe 35 years of my life about making some difference and changing laws or regulation. What are you going to do in terms of being which we're going to support you until you become that Senate? What are you going to do when you're there?
Well, the one thing that I've already started working is different tiers that we can work on with healthcare. You know, working with Senator Haywood, I already said, look, these are the different ways we can tackle this. I know everybody wants Medicare for all. Well, you know, after discussing it with him, he says there's different avenues because of the cost. You know, the cost is very high, and it's going to hurt a lot of people, especially those that own homes and pay taxes. And he went on and on and on. So I said, all right, well, why don't we tackle it a different way? Let's do a tier where all small businesses would be under one umbrella and have that discount that the insurance company give these big corporations that have 3,000 or 4,000 employees. It should be the same. So that'll at least eliminate that portion. The second portion is like in New York and in Michigan, or New York and Minnesota, where they started a basic health plan. Those are the people that that don't fit into the Medicare or Medicaid right now. So they would be able to give money for that insurance, but it's not going to be like $1,000 out of pocket, or, you know, their co-insurance is not going to be $50. But we have to do it in a way that slowly, somewhere along the line, everybody will be able to get health care together. So, you know, it's going to not break the people that are going to be getting, like, let's see, the last time I saw 50% out of their paycheck in order to have everybody have health care. There's got to be a different formula. And the formula that I'm bringing to the table can help those three situations. So in the future, we can say, all right, let's see how else we can do it where everybody has Medicare for all or something of that nature. But right now, that's what I want to bring to the table because I'm familiar with the healthcare. I'm familiar with all the different packages they have out there. So many these odd insurance companies that call me constantly, these telemarketers, they're like, sure, you can pay $50 a month and get healthcare. Okay, so you tell me how much is my out of pocket? Oh, it's only like $6,000. Well, excuse me, there are some people that need that $6,000 just to make it for the year to eat, or you know, and they're somewhere along the line they're slipping. I mean, the fact that 22,000 children plus, because after this coronavirus, don't have health care in Lancaster, there's a problem. Yeah. And as your legislator, as your senator, I'm going to go to every county. I want to meet every person. I want their name. I want their address. And I want to know if they do not have health care. So like that, we can start working on those people. Because to be honest with you, I can't believe the fact that in 2015 with Commissioner Molly Henderson, she brought in the department to bring in the Department of Health in Lancaster. Well, that was brought up. Oh, now the coronavirus is in. Now everybody wants to jump on that. Well, that could have been taken care of in 2015. Now we have an epidemic. People don't have insurance. The people that lost their job don't have insurance. And then they're not going to go and get health, because they're not going to say, let me get tested, because here's the deal. You get tested. Okay. So that gets paid for. But what happens after the fact? All right. So I'm positive. I'm dying. I need a ventilator. Who's going to pay that bill?
The financial.
Those are the situations that I bring out. I bring it right to your face. I tell you, these are the issues. And
you mean your pre-existing condition, that thing?
Oh yeah, that pre-existing condition.
Which is at that point is a
Exactly.
What are you going to do now? You got a pre-existing condition.
Exactly. And I was, to my surprise, I work in healthcare, but to my surprise that they consider this from coronavirus as God work. That's exactly any insurance company. I'm sure our listeners don't know that, but we have a family member who passed away. Their life insurance refused. They said they cannot pay for. Rogette.
Act of God is act of God.
Act of God. Look it up. From there, educate yourself. And in this note, Rogette, education, and Vern. Janet was talking about healthcare and education. This is one of the disadvantage for minority. And this is huge when you are not providing me with the same opportunity as, say, for example, a white person or anybody that is not Black or look like me. How can you expect someone who has no advantage?
Well, let me just quickly say something. I want to chime in on that.
Yeah.
It's not in the county. There are people that are Anglos, they're white, and they're going through the same problem. Why? Because they're not educated. They don't want to educate them. So, even though we do have predominantly the issue in more of the minority area, but when you go out to the county, I was shocked, just totally shocked.
Yes.
To me, it's a systemic problem right across the board.
You guys, this is by the choice, but for Black or minority, it wasn't a choice. If you go to the school system in Harrisburg or any underprivileged area, Rogette, you were saying something. I'm sorry.
Well, I was saying in the minority communities, you have both sides of it. You have the lack of education aspect of it, but even if you have the education, you have the health care. Studies also show you're still less likely to need the same care as a white individual with the same virus or disease that you have. So, we're fighting it on two fronts. And one thing that 2020 has done, as disastrous as it's been, is it has really shown the disparities between communities and healthcare and education. We're celebrating Juneteenth today. How many schools celebrate this? I was talking about this, even teach it. I was speaking about this with my mother today. I remember when I was in high school, we did a whole semester on British studies.
Yeah.
So we spent a whole semester learning about Great Britain, but I can't remember one time we talked about the massacre in Tulsa, when we talked about Juneteenth. No. Our schools don't teach American history, and Black history is American history. So, we have to start with that. And then as we move forward, even when you, quote, do what you're supposed to do, you go to school, you get educated, you're still treated differently. So
I can tell you a real quick story of what happened to me when we moved here from New York. It still kind of burns me inside. I was the only Latina in the class, and I was very quiet because I was in culture shock. You come from New York City, you have the rainbow of different cultures, and you come and the kids would tease me and call and say to me, "Hey, wetback," and I couldn't understand what that meant to me, other than, "Hey, Mom," they keep saying my back is wet. I don't get it, and my mom trying to shelter me and make sure that I didn't know what racism was. She goes, "Oh, they're just kidding with you," And as time went on, I realized that I didn't have friends either. So I sat there one day in the stoop and the house that we finally got a place to live. And I would see this beautiful, beautiful mansion across the street. It was just yellows. I was just being quiet. So the neighbor comes across the street with her daughter, and she goes, "Can I talk to your mom?" Well, I freaked out. I was like, what did I do other than sit in this stoop and do nothing? Anyway, so my mom comes out and she asks my mom's like looking at me with this like the evil eye, you know, everybody knows that parent evil eye. And she goes, "Yes, how can I help you?" And she goes, "Oh, I just wanted to know if you could let your daughter come and play with April at our house." Well, that was a twist. I thought, I am going to get the whipping of my life. I didn't do anything. But it was after 2 years. So these are just some things that Lancaster has changed. But it just goes to show you how many, you know, what the biases are and what kids currently may be going through, you know, in school. And you're correct. Teaching our kids is so important.
Yeah. Sheltering your kids is not something that we wanted. I mean, yes, we can shelter them from the harsh thing, but you need to teach them the reality, because that's what they're facing in school. That's what causing depression, increase of suicidal rate in the school and all of that, because we don't know what's going on. And like Rogette said, they don't teach us that. We don't know about our history. I have a friend in New York who started art and educating by using art and clothes to teach about Black American heritage. But again, you know, you don't hear that happening when you say German American for a white folk or Irish American. You just say Black American, Asian American, Latin American. We are all American. Can we just start teaching? When they hear it, that's what they're going to say in the school. My daughter was called an N word so many times in high school, middle school, and not just the N, because I'm from Sudan originally, so they call us C and N. So we're like even lower than the regular, you know, Black folk. So this is what kids are facing in school now. Racism exists. Putting your head down and like the dirt and covering it and acting like la la la, I don't want to hear or see. That's not going to help. So Vern, you were saying something. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. So what's interesting is the stories are not told in the history books. Yeah. There's a far more effective way of telling the story. It's been around for a long time. It's music. And that has been a way of bypassing the fact that we're not going to talk about it in the history books. I hope we do, because we're never going to deconstruct privilege if we can't understand what it means for 400 years to cause to cause wealth not to be able to be passed between generations, to cause so with the redlining that was occurring. I mean, I'm talking recently with the redlining that was occurring, it prevented families from getting equity. So two things were happening at the same time. One is it was legal to keep all white neighborhoods. You could have neighborhood covenants. In fact, at one point, you could lose your realtor's license if you sold a house in a white neighborhood to a Black family, and so you'd use so there was apartheid here basically. And what would happen is, because you couldn't live in a white neighborhood and you couldn't get a mortgage in a Black neighborhood, you just couldn't own a home. And so if you can't own a home, there's no way to produce equity. And with no way to produce equity, there's a limited way of passing wealth on between generations. And as a result, there's a limited amount of education that can happen. The one thing, so I've been working on talking to conservative people. I'm not on the continuum anymore between conservative and liberal anymore. Yeah. But what I'm really interested in, so one thing that has been the conservative people have always said is the economy is not a pie; it just gets bigger. And so when I take that verbiage from what they're saying and saying the biggest loss that we have in America right now is the loss of talent and ability and creativity from the communities that we've held their head underwater. Like, could we just not hold their head underwater? They really don't need help. They just need to get their head above water. And if we could do these things to not push people's head underwater, this incredible pie is going to get bigger because people are creative. They don't need, we need to make up for hundreds of years of, we've hurt people. We need to heal. We need to set people up for success. We need to go back and remediate things that we have hurt. And that is really, really true. But the reality is there is a ton of talent. Yeah. And when it is released, when we are setting people up for success, we're going to have basically more than 25% of the country is under facilitated. They're working with one hand and one leg tied behind their back. Mm-hmm. What would it look like if everybody had what they need when they woke up in the morning and they were able to contribute in ways that were meaningful to them? What would that look like?
We want to see that, but it's not just about education. We touched on some education and poverty and housing, like you just said. Oh, this is disadvantage. But on top of that, you have the police and arresting and charging young Black men for a crime and having them serve a longer sentence. I mean, you can go search this. This is not something I'm just pulling out of my, behind.
No, it's true.
But this is fact. You can go look it up. You can have similar situation when there is a Black young man and a white young man who were sentenced for two different sentence for the same exact crime, or just the arrest. And you have someone who's coming out, like out of jail, and not being able to have a regular life. So, police reformation, Rogette, what do we need? What do we need done from Janet, from all our candidates? What do we need from our citizens like you and my family? What can we do to help Janet and help all the other candidates get us there?
Well, I think one of the problems is each local area has their own rules. Yeah. And, I'm firm that the federal government and the state needs to set general guidelines that every local municipality has to abide under when they set their rules. We already know that we need better training. Yeah. We need a database. As we know, when a police officer, the rare occasion they are fired, they just move and get another job. I was speaking to a former police officer, and one of his suggestions is there should be a 90-day psych evaluation for police officers to see where their mind is, because of a lot that they go through a lot and see a lot too, and it does affect them mentally. So to make sure that they get the care they need if they need it. But we don't know that if they get these psych evaluations. There's just, when you talk about the sentencing, there we go with judges. Mm-hmm. A lot of judges are appointed, but a lot are elected too. So we're right back to the ballot box. Well, we need to look at these minimums, these maximum minimum guidelines. Yeah. That's something, if elected, you can definitely look at. I think it's ridiculous too if you have a nonviolent offense that you commit when you're 17 that follows you till you're 40.
Yes. Yes.
We need to do something with expungement of nonviolent offenses. We also need to do something with bail reform. Here in Dauphin County, most of the people sitting in the jail, they're not violent. They can't afford their bail. Yeah. But then that goes back to the judges. So those are some issues that when you're elected, I hope you definitely take up.
And I think one of the things that it should go across the board is that police should be required to live in the area where they're working. Yeah. And I tell you what, there are so many different excuses that I've gotten. And it's interesting because we have about 5 cops in my family. We have one that's a sergeant in New York in the Bronx. And I recall as a youngster that I knew my police was like right down the block. And I knew that the other Irish cop was on the other side of the block. And the fact that he would come out and say, hey, how you doing, kids? That's so important, because then kids can say, I trust that policeman. I know that if I go to him and say, hey, I was abused or I was raped or something of that nature, you know, that they can feel comfortable to go that cop and say, can you help me with this? Or, you know, if the person is of color, we need to make some changes so police of color can be policemen as well. Right. People that are in that area, you know, my brother is a cop, although he's in Puerto Rico, you know, and he is way darker than I am. So, you know, and he even has like the systemic issues in Puerto Rico because, you know, there's racism there as well, you know. So there are different ways that we can work with our community, work with the state. A lot of youngsters, there's the law of, you know, where you have to get so many points to take your test and become a policeman. There's another, you know, that's a problem as well. Because I know a lot of youngsters that are either Hispanic or Asian or Black that would love to take that test and want to become police. But wait, you don't qualify because you weren't in the military. Oh, you don't qualify because there's always that issue. And I think I don't know if that's going to tackle only the state, but also federal, that we should have so many percentage in the actual police force that looks just the same way as our community does. That's
really helpful. One other big picture thing coming from, if you've read the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration, we made a decision that is asinine back in the 70s. We made a decision that criminalized drug addiction instead of dealt with it as a medical issue. So basically, we decided we're gonna prosecute supply and do virtually nothing about demand, which only makes the price go up, right? That's supply and demand. That's how it works. And so they're talking now about unbundling police. They're saying we have made the police the backstop for basically all of our problems. They're not really well set up for drug addiction. Right. So let's unbundle them. Let's do that a different way in the community. And as you know, as you're all saying here, as we unbundle that, they don't. It's dangerous for them. You know, doing calls for family issues or doing calls for drug addiction or the crime that comes with drug addiction is very dangerous for them. And if we were handling that in the community, it does a couple of things. A, it produces work for community people who are already oriented to love their community well. And I don't think that's a great job for a cop to deal with somebody. I worked in the prison for a little bit. I worked in Cumberland County Prison helping people deal with their addictions. And I saw miracles there. I saw people find their way out. But I also had a guy, I had a number of people who had been there. I had a 40-year-old guy who'd been in prison 38 times. That's a broke system. Yeah. That is a systemic broke system. And so part of not only, you got to look at the really big picture is how do we get here? And what were the decisions that we made in the 70s to criminalize certain behavior and then militarize police to deal with criminalized behavior that has nothing to do with criminality. It's not, drug addiction is not a criminal issue. Drug addiction is a medical issue. And if I don't care how often you prosecute it, you're not going to resolve it. The way to resolve it is give people some help. And with drug addiction, you know, nothing happens in a vacuum, right? There's issues of poverty. One of the most painful things that can happen to a human being is for them to be talented and have something to offer and have no place to put it. And that is so painful. I don't think people realize how painful that is. And pain, emotional pain of that kind is what drives people to numb. And all of addiction is numbing, right? So if you live in a community in which you have a ton of talented people and there's literally no outlet, there's going to be some numbing going on. And if we treat that as a criminal problem, you know, you get what you're looking for, you're going to find some crime, you know.
And that will open up, Vern, a lot. Like even when we talked about the disadvantaged towns or cities, you know, there are targets for drugs and people will go there and sell drugs. And who are those dealers, you know? And now we have so many people that were incarcerated because of marijuana, and now it's legal. So where we stand there, I mean, there's so many issues. And we all have our biases. Everyone has biases.
Yes.
You can't say, you know what, I'm not, and when someone starts a sentence by saying, I'm not a racist, but they're racist.
Yeah, as soon as you hear but, you got a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in real quick before I forget, because it's really important. When you were talking about putting those that are addicted into getting incarcerated, we also have to look at the systemic issue with people that are mentally ill. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to tell you something that really, really upset me. My opponent, my general opponent, he was responsible for the Lancaster County prison as a commissioner. And at the time, there was a 17-year-old that left Phil Haven, which is a mental hospital, and he was incarcerated. Now, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was 17. Unfortunately, this child committed suicide. Okay, and according to my opponent, that mental people that have mental disabilities that's their problem. So it was his problem to commit suicide. Well, first of all, he should have never been put in jail if he was mentally ill. It's again the same problem. He needed treatment. It happened to my cousin's son as well. That was years ago before the commissioner had came in and took over that. But that tells you right there, it's a broken system. Now I got to give it to the mayor that did bring in a social worker to work with our police. And we're working on, in the city, they are really doing good. I got to give it to our city council and also to the police. What is his name? Chief, I forget not his name, Berkeyheiser. That we all agree that we bring in a social worker. So when there are issues of that kind, that person can take over, because that's not really a police issue, And that's another thing that can go across the state.
To go across the state, and that's again when people talk about police reformation, and Rogette was talking about viewpoint that we already put in motion, having them tested mentally, look at their social media. For goodness sakes, if I apply for a job or you apply for a job, they can not hire you based on some post or a picture that you posted when you were 17. So why can we hold our police to the same standard? Like, look at their posts. I have so many friends who are currently working as cops, and they were posting so much hate and racist posts. Why do we let them go? Just go with this without getting punished or penalized. And I'm sorry, Rogette, you were saying something.
No, I agree with everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely do. And, Camden, New Jersey is a good study that I think other areas should look at, where, people say defund the police, but it's not really a correct term for what it means.
Yeah.
But like in Camden, they still funded the police, but they took money and they put into social workers to help people who might be suicidal, to help people who have drug, alcohol abuse. They put money in those social services that help bring down the crime. Because if you have to treat the symptoms. And that's something we're not doing now. We're not treating the symptoms.
Right. They're calling it unbundling. One of the terms that's coming out now is unbundling. Exactly what you're saying. We bundled police into basically the be all and end all of, if there's a problem, call the police. And what you're mentioning, which is so true, is to say, let's be intentional about. So one thing I learned in dealing with people in addictions in prison is the very best people are people who have found sobriety. Mm-hmm. If you've had an addiction problem, they're the best people. So how could we, when we have people posting things on social media that are, you just look at it and you're like, what is that? Could we have community-based things that help them see it differently? Like, I'm really in favor of redemptive justice, not retaliatory justice. There is a place for it. I'm sure retaliatory justice, there's a place for it, but most people are working out of their ignorance, and you can't cure ignorance with retaliation. You cure ignorance by education, by getting people by bringing people together in and helping them see positive.
Informing them and educating them, but at the same time, I am not going to give a job to someone who I know they will act based on their biases. If someone is clearly...
Oh, no, I agree, yeah.
Again, it's Latinos or Black American or any Asian, or they made remark in the past, how are you going to give them a gun?
Yeah, no, bad idea.
You know, and not just a gun, you know. This system does not
sorry.
Okay, but as this is the main purpose of opening those kind of discussion. I know 1 hour. I did say that to all of you. 1 hour is not enough, but at least you will get the conversation started. You are all welcome to come back individually or collective as a group again, and we can continue the discussion. We touch on so many issues, social issues, and things that we want from our politician to do once they get elected. And I think this is the main thing for this platform, to get our listener to know the candidate, and at the same time from them to hear our concerns. And Janet is a good example for someone who's from the community and is going to do good for the community. So, you know what? Vote. And I'm not telling you to vote just for Janet because she's here. Go learn about her. See what she did. She's out there in the community. She gave you her cell phone number, for goodness sake. You know, who does this? Someone sincere that care about their community. And as educator, we need to be the voice for the voiceless. We need to keep fighting. And if the system is not working, what we need to do, restructure it. And that's what we're all trying to do. And it hasn't worked for 400 plus years. You all were saying the same thing, and we're all in agreement. And many stories that we can talk about. I understand how it may be hard for someone who wasn't experiencing racism to relate to it, but listen to us, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and before we finish this, I want each one of you to say something, you know, what do we want people to do and know, and what do you want them to go and help? Like for Janet, where do you want people to go and learn about you and vote and volunteer and do all of that? Rogette, same way. What do you want to say? Last word, and same for you, Vern. Start with Janet.
Well, the first thing, if you want to learn about me, you go to my website, Janet Diaz for Pennsylvania State Senate. You can volunteer there. You can make your donation, big or small, whatever you can afford. But the most important thing is learn what each entity of legislation and departments do. Register to vote. You know, that is so important. We've lost so much education and civics in our school system, and educate yourself. If you just became a citizen and you were an immigrant, learn what each candidate is bringing forward. Don't just vote for somebody because someone knocks on your door and says, "Hey, here, vote." No, learn who your candidate is. And I'm not saying that just because of me. I'm saying that across all the United States. Learn who that candidate is, what they've done, what they haven't done for you. That is so important. And go to your, local party and find out, how you can get involved. Talk with your neighbors, find out information about your neighborhood. That's so important. And that's what I'd like to leave with you guys.
Rogette.
Our county party's slogan here in Dauphin County is to let your vote be your voice. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do. If you're unhappy with the response with the coronavirus, if you're unhappy that there's not enough testing, if you're unhappy with what's going on, again, as Janet just said, learn about your candidates and vote for the ones that's going to make that change. If you're unhappy with the police brutality, all these marches happening daily out, because people are tired. And luckily now people are starting to listen, but the solutions are going to be in the policy. That's why I admired most about Martin Luther King Jr. He was out protesting and marching, but he was also in the White House making sure that the Civil Rights Act was getting passed. So again, let your vote be your voice. If you live in Dauphin County, please visit us on our website, dauphindems.com. Contact me on Facebook. Again, I'm Rogette, and get involved because we're going to need your help to get the candidates elected to make the changes that you want to see in your community. And again, I'd just like to thank you for having me on your show tonight. I enjoyed it.
We enjoyed having you as well. Vern.
Thank you for having me, letting me be the minority white guy in the show. I'm so honored for that, and a guy nonetheless to trust me. That is a huge trust. Thank you. The things that I would love for people to do, I would love for them to watch an interview between Cornel West and Anderson Cooper. Mm-hmm. Cornel did a splendid job of understanding, of being able to articulate the grace of the Black community, and in this difficult time, what he said was profound. So that's the first thing. I'd also like, recently I viewed, there's a video from the creator of VeggieTales. His name's Phil Vesher, and he has a video out called that explains systemic racism. And if you could frame that out, watch that. It is profound and beautiful. So both of those are helpful. And then maybe a third thing is spend at least Wikipedia. Look at the race massacre, and please don't call it a riot, call it a massacre. The race massacre in Tulsa, and start conversations with people. Ask questions and start conversations. Each of these things, they affect people, they hurt people, they cause fear in people's lives. And I think by addressing the fear, love casts out fear. We know that. And we need to learn to love. We need to learn to displace the fear with love. And I believe that by learning to love the Black community better, we're going to become much better people. We are going to be led by the Black community. We are being led by the community, but we are going to learn everything that matters from this. This is very hard, but it is also beautiful, and I'm really excited to see what comes from it, as painful as it is.
And it's beautiful to see how many people from all type of colors, the rainbow, coming together and protesting alongside each other. And I had the honor of protesting so many times, and trying to do this. But I really want to thank you so much for putting time into sharing your opinion and educating so many people. We as educator, we have to, like I said again, I'm going to repeat this so many times, we need to be the voice for the voiceless. But we cannot solve a problem without addressing it. When we talk about biases, we all have biases. You guys need to all look into yourself and find, acknowledge that systemic racism exists. It's a real problem. That's the first step. And then find what is your personal biases, and try to overcome that and help each other. But then it is not just the police brutality that we discuss, or in this regard for Black lives. We talked about quality of education, housing, privilege of jobs, and discrimination. And the sideway glance when you walk as Black, just like driving while Black, walking while Black in a very rich or white community. Just the glance that you get, like you don't belong. We all need to address this. And I know so many people don't discuss this with their families because, what we learn all, not to talk about politics, not to talk about religion. But this is not the case. We need to talk about those issues and try to educate. And, like I said, people of color supposed to reach the same standard of living if we would not offer the same opportunities to begin with. Have all this, everything that we just discussed and shared with you, simmer right there in your head. Don't just sit and hear it from Vern, Janet, or Rogette and Janet, but listen, read, learn. If someone comes to you crying for help, listen to them. I really really want to thank all four of you, three of you. I'm counting myself. Come and vote for Janet. Go learn about her. Learn about all the candidates that we bring here in the show, and do something. Your vote does count, and don't feel like, you know what, I voted before and nothing happened. Things happen. You might not see it. And if you want to be the change, if you want to do a change or make a change, be the change. Thank you. And again, come back again and finish this long list of issues and conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Bye.